taught you, please, who taught you to hate the texture of your hair? Who taught you to hate the color of your skin to such extent that you bleach to get like the white man? Who taught you to hate the shape of your nose and the shape of your lips? Who taught you to hate yourself from the top of your head to the soles of your feet? Who taught you to hate your own kind? Who taught you to hate the race that you belong to? So much so that you don't want to be around each other. No, before you come asking Mr. Muhammad, does he teach hate? You should ask yourself, who taught you to hate being what God gave you? We teach you to love the hair that God gave you. Here you way out in the middle of the ocean, can't swim, and you worried about someone that's in the bathtub and can't swim. We don't steal, we don't gamble, we don't lie, and we don't cheat. And that also deprives the government of revenue, because you can't get into a whiskey bottle without getting past the government seal. You can't open a deck of cards without getting past the government seal. There's a white man makes the whiskey and then puts you in jail for getting drunk. He sells you the cards and the dice and puts you in jail when he catches you using them. So he's against us because we fix it where he can't catch you anymore. We take the dice out of your hands and the cards out of your hands and the whiskey out of your head. The most disrespected person in America is the black woman. The most unprotected person in America is the black woman. The most neglected person in America is the black woman. And as Muslims, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us to respect our women and to protect our women. And the only time a Muslim really gets real violent is when someone goes to molest his woman. We will kill you for our woman. I'm making it plain, yes. We will kill you for our woman. We believe that if the white man will do whatever is necessary to see that his woman gets respect and protection, then you and I will never be recognized as men until we stand up like men and place the same penalty over the head of anyone who puts his filthy hands out to put in the direction of our women.
Black is beautiful, that's for sure. And for me, there's nothing like a black woman. And I'd like to say welcome to all of the beautiful black women and white women and women in general who are real women. We thank you for coming. Welcome to the men in the chat. You guys are kings, you know that. And we appreciate you being here. And let me just get to my chat because we're going to get right into this. People don't come, they can catch it on the replay. But Do Things is up first. Got in the building. Shannon Hurd was right behind him. Shannon Hurd right there. And then Philly Bill popped up. And then KGR 317. Crown Reese in the building. My brother from another mother. Peace be multiplied. And of course, we got ND Clear Publishing LLC UTA in the building. X-Con up in here, up in here. Oh, thanks, X-Con. Yeah, man, we are definitely kings. And, you know, there's been enough distractions going on. And so, you know, it's time to get away from the distractions. I guess it was fun for a while, but, you know, you got to be aware that they're distractions. I'm always aware that they're distractions, but sometimes the distractions are good for views. It's not like what we're going to talk about tonight. Any other thing we talk about, never YouTube will not monetize any of those videos. So it's okay if you get $3 or $2 if they monetize some of the distractions. But you guys got to remember they are distractions. Never forget that some of this stuff going around the internet is just for distractions. Just around the, what they used to call it, the water fountain talk. That's all it is. But back to real news and things that really matter to us. And tonight we intend to have you stretch your mind a little bit further than normal, and to make you aware of what's really been going on while this confusion and stuff starts. You know, you got to realize, like a lot of stuff happens and confusion and stuff like that start, that means something else is going on that they're trying to pull your attention away from, trying to make you not aware of it. But those of us who are focused and read, we're usually on it. Xcon says, he says, wipe your feet on it, hit the like button on your way in, people. That would be so great, man, if they did that. With everything that we bring, we hit the like button. We hate to just put that thing like that up there to remind people. I don't think no other YouTuber has to do this but me. You think when people come in, they would just hit the like button, because I hate to cover up something that you really need to see. So hit the like button, let those likes go up. That's part of the reason why we do our theme song, is to give people a chance to actually come on and give them a chance to get in here. And again, if you didn't get notification, that's not us, that's YouTube. You have to hit that notification bell and recertify notification bell, and then push all. Also like and share. Definitely like and share. Definitely share the video so we can get word out there to the rest of the world, because they need to hear what we're going to be talking about. And tonight we're going to be talking about the birth dearth. The birth dearth. This is a very, very important subject. You know, I've been holding this back for a minute, you know, before we got into this. It all ties into BIE and a host of other things, but I just wanted to hold back. I didn't know why, because I had talked about this with Michelle. Y'all should come on the page sometimes. We talked about this, I think, last year. And our intentions were to do this last year, but something told me to hold it back, because it's bigger than what I wanted to talk about. And it just grew really big a couple of days ago, because we saw that, you know, prophecy was fulfilled. And I know, like, many of you guys are saying, like, okay, what am I talking about? The birth dearth is an interesting topic. Let me just show you this real quick. This book is so important. It was written in 1987, and you can get it on Amazon for $1,305. That's a bid. All right, that's how precious this book is. If you got this book, all right. No kidding. This is a plain book. When it came out, it was about $10. So they ain't making it no more. So those people who actually have it have a gem on their hand. And you see the price right there. Look at it real good. To get that book, if somebody's selling it, the starting bid would be $1,305 for a book that used to cost about $10. Now, why would a book like this be $1,305? And why would they stop making it? Because it contains information that they simply do not want you to know. And the guy who written this book was an advisor to presidents and an advisor to Washington, D.C. And you need to get in there and see what he was advising them. And then a lot of things are going to start to make sense to you. Like, why are they killing young African-American males? Why are they jailing African-American males? Why are African-American males killing each other? You'll start to understand it better. You'll start to see that this book, which originally was basically a teaching, turned out to be prophetic and before its time. And they wanted to make sure you couldn't get it. But there are a few people who got it, and some want to part with it. They have read it enough. And in order for you to get that book, it'll be about $1,305 for a book that used to cost $10. That should tell you that it's an important teaching, and that what we're talking about is real. It is for real, and it's serious, and you need to keep this in your mind. You know, you see tonight how low the stream is, but if I change the title and I put the name of a celebrity on here, everybody would come running. These platforms shouldn't just be places where you guys come to hear gossip. these platforms should be something to stimulate you and that will help you in life. So let's go over what has happened over the weekend, and then we'll bring it in all together. So over the weekend, something that has never happened before in the history of this country has happened. That's correct. It has never happened before that there was a leaked document leaked out from the Supreme Court where the document alleges, and it's by Judge Alito. Let me see if I can find him down here so you can get an idea of. I thought I had him up here. There he is. Right here. It's by him, Judge Alito. Judge Alito's draft and opinion, which would overturn Roe versus Wade. There was a leaked document, and it was leaked. It was not meant for the public to see. And this is the first document. The main one will come out in June. And according to this document, it says the Supreme Court has overturned Roe versus Wade. That means when the main one comes out in June, that abortion will be illegal. That is huge. Now, I'm going to let you know that definitely I am pro-life. But I'm going to let you know also, I don't believe you can tell a woman what to do with her body. That's my stance on that. If it were my choice, I would choose life. You know, God said in the book of Jeremiah, chapter 1, he said that he knew us while we were in our fathers, let alone our mothers. And he said when we got to our mothers, he sanctified us. So God knows babies. They call them fetuses, but God knows who they is. So they're human beings, they're people. So if it were me and I were carrying a child, I personally would keep my child. That's just me. But I do not have the right to tell another adult what to do with their body. Just like I can't tell you not to pierce your ears because those are your ears. Just like I would love to tell some of these young men, pull your pants up because I don't want to see your dude stained drawers. I'm in a restaurant trying to get me a sandwich and you get the dude stained drawers there. I would love to tell you to pull them up, but people say that they have the right to do that, you know. And so if you got the right to wear dude stained drawers and you got the right to do all these other things, then, you know, if you're a woman, you have a right to make up your mind to do what you want to do about something that you have to bear and put your life on the line. You may have gotten raped by a family member, raped by anybody. You know, I don't know what that a woman's situation is, but I don't believe that I have a right to infringe upon her to do anything. So I believe that it's between her, God, and the devil. You know, you got to live with that. But nevertheless, me personally speaking, I am definitely pro-life. But would I mandate something that would make an individual do anything? No, I would never do that. You know, and that's what this country is coming to. This country is going backwards. These Supreme Court justices are not even smart enough to even challenge the laws and things of the Constitution and things that were implemented by our old Supreme Court justices who went through painstaking hours and stuff to render a decision. And you can see now what all this yelling and screaming about getting in Supreme Court justices were about. It was about getting them in there so they can overturn Roe versus Wade. Now, that means making abortion illegal. Ex-con says, I'm not going to stop a whole lot, but Tanika Views ex-con says they want to overturn this so they can justify mandatory. This is what they're going for. It's a lot bigger than that. Hello, welcome, Yvette Jones. So let's get to this. And we're talking about the birth dearth, so don't forget that. Okay. Now, they want to overturn this for a very racist reason. That's right, racism. Racism is almost at the center of everything in America. Now, trust me, this is not going to really affect Black people the way you think, because this overturn of Roe versus Wade, if you ever look at the protests, you don't even see many Black people out there. But this is going to really, uh, they hope, remedy a problem that they'd like to remedy based on this book that we're talking about tonight, The Birth Dearth. This book that was written in 1987 was warning Washington and other, let's call them Americanized civilizations, about the lack of white people being born. And so what they tried to cover it up is they got you guys thinking depopulation. But if you understood this book, you wouldn't even be listening to depopulation, because you would realize that in Western civilizations in Europe and America, there is a population problem. So instead of the population being where they thought it was going to be, the population is not where they thought it was going to be. In fact, the only population that's populated is, at one time it was the black population, but they've turned black women into black feminists and they've stopped having children. They're making medicine that you take, and the medicine affects the black woman's ovaries. And, it's just a bad deal all the way around. But the real biggest part of the depopulation is the inability for European Anglo-Saxons to produce children. We have in vitro fertilization, artificial insemination, test tube ligation, and cloning, which is basically used by European Anglo-Saxon people. And it's like $500,000 a pop just to try, $500,000 to try, $500,000 to try, and at least 12 out of 15 times is going to fail. You do the math yourself. So they're out there trying to have children, trying to populate, and they still can't populate. Now, I have mixed opinions about that, and I believe that that's God, because you killed so many people during slavery, and you thought you were going to get away with it, but God has cursed certain people to where they cannot bear children. That's why bearing children is a blessing. I don't care how bad they is, it is a blessing. All right. And these people are doing everything. In fact, the few people who are successful with it, who thought, okay, went to a sperm bank and donated their husband's sperm, found out that they're doctors. This is one doctor I just recently read about. He has 47 children because he was impregnating women with his own sperm. So it's a technique that cannot be trusted. And nevertheless, it has not helped with European Anglo-Saxons giving birth. They're on the decline. In fact, it is estimated that in the year 2060, European Anglo-Saxons will pretty much cease to exist. That's it, 2060. That's for them. They will cease to exist. You don't have to worry about having a black president. It'll be black and be Mexican. One thing we know that he won't be, at the rate that it's going, he won't be white. That's for sure. And it's like everything that they try to do to change this fails. It completely fails. And that's what the book, The Birth Dearth, did. It tried to give them solutions on how to solve this. I think one of the things that they wanted to do in 87 is why they increased the welfare program and Social Security. They wanted to even do better than that. They really wanted to pay white women to have babies. That is true. They wanted to pay them, white women, not black women, not Mexican women. They wanted to pay white women. Y'all don't even have to work. Have as many white babies as you can, and we'll pay you. But of course, they couldn't do that because that's racist. And they definitely didn't want to give black people any money. It's in his book. This was being proposed to Washington because white women were deciding to go to school and have fun and be equal to men, becoming white feminists, and they weren't having children. All right, it just wasn't having children, period. And eventually they would spill it over to some black people. But nevertheless, that was one of the suggestions. Then another suggestion in the book was, and I think they're doing that right now. Listen to this. Well, look, let's just get some of the people that look white from over other countries and get them to come to America, and we'll pay them. So let's take a look. we're bringing Ukrainians over here who look white, even though they're Ukrainians, they're going to be Americanized. They'll be American citizens who side with white people. So they're trying to, they're doing exactly what this book say. You know, I'm not lying. Each one of those Ukrainians will get $1 million each who decide to stay in America. And we still haven't got nothing for reparations. Come on. Yeah, come on. I hope y'all understand this. This book is serious to say we could do that. Yeah, Afghanistanians here, it doesn't make a difference. They're not. They're going to side definitely with white people as well. They're going to be in white areas. They were given $500,000 each. This book suggested that to Washington, and of course Joe Biden was right there in the thick of these things, and that's the reason why he's doing the things that he's doing. So this book is being fulfilled. But last, but definitely not least, they realized that abortion was the thing that was hurting them the most. Abortion. 69% of all abortions are committed by white people, white women. 69% of every single abortion is committed by white people. These are facts. I'm not making it up. These are true facts. You can check. 69%. That's a lot of murder, a lot of killing of babies. So the writer of this book, and his name is Ben Rittenberg. He's a Jewish doctor. He came up with an idea. And the idea was, if we, talking about the people in Washington, could force those 69% of white women who are aborting their babies to stop aborting their babies, we could reverse this curse. And instead of being the minority, we'll be the majority. That is the reason why they're trying to overturn Roe versus Wade. But according to that writ by Judge Alito, they have successfully overturned Roe versus Wade. That was just the first one. So the second one will be coming out, and when that one comes out, that will be final. The Chief Justice has just ordered an investigation. He ain't got to investigate. He's letting the people know already that they're going to overturn Roe versus Wade, making abortion illegal because they want to stop 69% of white women. They don't want to stop black people from aborting them. They'll have undercover houses like they used to. Because you know what? Back in the old days, before Roe versus Wade, the way black people had abortions, I'm going to tell you this. It's the truth. It's kind of hard, but it's true. They used to take clothes hangers, the one you hang your clothes with in the closet, and stick them up in black women and strip the baby out like that. And a lot of black women bled to death and stuff of that nature. That was part of the reason. There was some horrible, horrible deaths. And that was part of the reason our Supreme Court justices came up and just said, no, let abortion be legal. Let it be done the right way. Because thousands upon thousands upon thousands of women died from sticking clothes hangers up in them. And this is the way those people were having abortions. Now, rich white women would just, do what they do, the Brazilian butt lift. They would just fly to Mexico or fly over to Europe and have one. But in America, especially in the deep South, people were dying. They would go and find a black woman. She had bled out to death, all in Mississippi, Alabama, Arkansas, because some abortion specialist tried to take a clothes hanger and stick up in her and give her an abortion. So this is serious. So the Supreme Court justices got wind all these deaths and all these bodies and stuff like that. And said, no, let's just make abortion illegal, make it legal, and people who want to can do this. And what it did was slow down the death of women. And also what it did was make people rethink, and people decided to keep their children. And there was a large population boom. But the population boom was of African Americans, Latinos. It was of every group of people but the European Anglo-Saxon. And so the European Anglo-Saxon just started to decline. And they started to come up with science, test tube ligation, artificial insemination, and cloning, and all of that stuff. But none of that worked. Hey, welcome Michelle McMorris Cashier, as well as Collins Woods. None of that stuff worked to help boost the population for European Anglo-Saxons, or y'all commonly call them white people. But this book has always been in Washington. And this book is the reason why you guys have this writ letting you know before it actually comes out, this writ from the Supreme Court. Never before in the history of mankind has a document been leaked by the Supreme Court letting you know that this Supreme Court and the justices have overturned Roe versus Wade. Now, this is only the first writ, and this was by Justice Alito, all right? And you guys saw him, Justice Alito. And why are they overturning Roe versus Wade? It's not because they're trying to protect black babies, but what they're trying to do is they're trying to cultivate 69% of white women and keep those white babies, because it is estimated in the year 2060, white people will cease in every aspect, from Congress to Senate. They will not even be, there'll not be enough of them to even hold any office at all whatsoever. So this, now I gave you the 3 reasons why, and I'm gonna let you see a video. The first reason that they came up with, they wanted to pay white women to have as many babies. A white woman could have 15 babies, and the state and the government was going to take care of it. But they knew that was racist, okay? And so they said, no, we don't want to pay black women a dime. So black women are not going to get a dime, so that's out. We're not going to pay white women to have babies. Then the second thing, okay, look at this. Keep in mind, they said, well, look, we'll go ahead to other nations like Germany, the blonde hair, blue eyes, and we'll bring a bunch of Germans over here, and we'll repopulate America by letting these people over there come over here. At least they look white. We'll do it that way. They'll side with the American European Anglo-Saxons. You can see that happening now. You see the Ukrainians here. You see the Afghanistanians here. They're kicking the Africans out, okay? And nobody want to talk about that. They're just kicking them out for no reason at all. Even if a child's born over here, their parents going back, they're putting them children with their parents and sending them back, naturalized Africans that are born here. Y'all thought that when Trump was in office, he was kicking out Mexicans. No, he wasn't. He was kicking out Nigerians and Eritreans at an alarming rate, and nothing was being said about it. They were just showing you pictures on the news of Mexicans and stuff of that nature. But I'll tell you what, I'm gonna let you look at this video, and this is by Jane Elliott, and you can listen to what Jane Elliott has to say. She is definitely an expert in this. I've spoken with her people and tried to get on the show. Don't know if we've got that taken care of, but take a listen to this. I mean, please stop what you're doing and listen to this, because this is very, very, very important. Jane Elliott.
You don't understand the wall that we're going to build on the southern border of the United States. You haven't read the book, The Birth Dearth by Ben Wattenberg. Ben Wattenberg was a brilliant Jewish man who was a member of the American Enterprise Institute, and he wrote a book, the first paragraph of which says, the main problem confronting the United States today is there aren't enough white babies being born in this country. He was an advisor to presidents of the United States. He wrote the book in 1987. He says if we don't change this and change it rapidly, white people will lose their numerical majority in this country, and this will no longer be a white man's land. Now, I'm not misrepresenting this. I'm telling you exactly, almost exactly what he says. He says there are 3 things we can do to solve this. Number 1, we could pay women to have babies, as they have been doing in Western European nations for years. Then he says, and these are his words, not mine, unfortunately, we would have to pay women of all colors to have babies, so we don't want to do that. He says the second thing we could do is increase the number of legal immigrants that are allowed into this country every year. Then once again he says, unfortunately, the vast majority of those wanting to come to this country today are people of color, so we don't want to do that. The third thing he says, and women had better pay attention to this, 60% of the fetuses that are aborted every year are white. If we could keep that 60% alive, that would solve our birth dearth. Does that sound like racism to you?
Can you talk a little bit about the trauma associated with?
The trauma associated with it?
Yeah.
One of the main traumas is it tells white people that they are superior because of the lack of melanin in their skin. And then they find out suddenly that we've got a black president. That's traumatic. That's where the trauma is. Living a lie, finding out the truth, is traumatic. Finding out now, recently, that within 30 years, White people will be in the numerical minority in this country is going to be traumatic. White people are scared to death right now, particularly white males. They're scared to death that they are going to lose their power in the future. And they are. But if you want to get ready for the future, if you want to be treated well in the future, treat others well in the present. What we do in the present constructs the future. We called the Japanese, and you'll pardon me, but this is what we called them, slant-eyed little yellow We didn't say that about the Germans. After the war, we rebuilt Germany and Japan. And we get along beautifully with the Japanese. That was in 1945 that we finally won that war. How many years ago was that? Figure that out quickly.
I'm not a math person, but...
You're not a math person, but you know it wasn't that far. Right. And it didn't take 50 years for us to have peace with the Japanese and the Germans, even though we dropped 2 atomic bombs on Japan. The Japanese hadn't killed 10 million people. Nowhere near that. We didn't drop any bombs on Germany, any atomic bombs on Germany. They were a different kind of people. We couldn't afford to do that. We killed how many Japanese people with 2 atomic bombs? And they forgave us. You want to talk about forgiveness? You want to talk about changing this thing? I cannot understand how Japanese people can stand the sight of any of us, and yet they do. I cannot understand why black people who have been subjected to the ugliness that they've been subjected to in this country can get up every morning and go to work among us and not be absolutely furious. And I don't understand why we allow white people to behave the way they do. I don't understand that. And my 3rd graders, after they'd gone through the exercise, couldn't understand it and wouldn't tolerate it. And when they went up to junior high and a junior high teacher used the N-word, one of my former students said, if you're going to use that word, I'm going to go out in the hall until you stop using it, because we don't use that word in this school. That was a 7th grader who told his teacher off. When we have enough students who are willing to confront people who are making racist, sexist, ageist, homophobic statements, we're going to be better off. We have got to stop tolerating the intolerable. If it's intolerable for my black cousins, and every black person on this earth is one of my cousins, if it's intolerable for them, it's intolerable for me. I will not tolerate it. I will not tolerate it. That is not that. I am required not to tolerate that kind of treatment for the people who are related to me. And that's every person on the face of the earth. If your ignorance is such that you will mistreat somebody because of your ignorance about the color of their skin, don't do it around me. Number 1, I've been threatened with death lots of times. Now I say, go for it, fool. My husband died 4 years ago. Being with him would not be a bad thing for me. Death is not the worst thing that can happen to you. Living a worthless, useless life is much worse than dying.
Wow. That was so powerful. Living a worthless, useless life is worse than dying. I happen to agree with her. And like I say, she's also an expert in this field. And now you can see why the Supreme Court wanted to overturn Roe versus Wade. It was to force white women to keep babies. Now understand, these babies, a lot of them were rape, were incest babies. A lot of things happen to these women. It's just not everyday women going to get rid of babies. Some of these women were forced and stuff of that nature to have these babies by their fathers, brothers, cousins, and they want to get rid of them. But it don't matter to the government. The government says, okay, we didn't try everything. It ain't work. We got to overturn Roe versus Wade. And this will force white women to keep babies that they really don't want because of sometimes the violent nature in which they got them. And at the same time, will fool black people. And, oh, ain't no men in the house. I mean, you know, some of y'all got to be really not very smart. If ain't no men in the house, how you get pregnant? Somebody had to go in you somewhere. But we keep hearing it. And remember what the Bible says, faith cometh by hearing. All right. So the more you hear something, even if it's not true, you're going to start to believe that. I know there were men in the houses because there was men like my father in the house. I had a father. My friends had a father. My father built the entire Chicago skyline. Lake Point Tower, Sears Tower, John Hancock, Standard Oil Building. All of those buildings were built by my father and another group of men that came from the 40s from Mississippi to Chicago. So we had fathers. Some of them are your grandfathers. You that are listening to me. We had fathers, but they want to erase that. That's why they didn't like the Cosby Show, because it painted a truth where not every black person lived in the projects. Not every black person went through that. Some of our black families went to school. Some of our mothers were nurses. My mother worked at a hospital for over 60 years. 60 years. So, but they wanted to paint that picture. They wanted to get rid of that picture, and trying to erase the black family, because the black family was a strong family, always has been. You know, if you go back and look in the 60s, you look at the King family, look at the black people going to church, there were husbands and wives. You look at those fathers. They want you to forget about that. You see Malcolm and Betty. When Malcolm talks about he would kill for his women, he's talking about Betty Shabazz. There was men in the house, and there's still men in the houses. How you gonna tell me ain't no man in the house and the woman has had 4 kids by the same man? Now, of course, to get welfare, she has to go and lie, because of course they don't want black fathers in the house. And if he down on his luck and they didn't give him felony driver's license, so he can't get a job because they made driving without a license a felony. They did that to try and cripple the race. So the woman, in order to get any benefits that you just heard were directed directly for white women, they had to just say, okay, well, you know what? He's not in the house. You know, there are black men in the house. I mean, just think about it. Maybe you ain't got one now because you wasn't getting along, but there was one there from the beginning. How many of us can, that's the whole reason why I see Colin's put it there. I was going to talk about that, why they got rid of John Amos. And if you want to go talk, listen to John Amos, he's on TikTok. You know, they got rid of John Amos because Norman Lear did not like having a strong black man in a home. That's right. And they wanted to get rid of the strong black man. In fact, I cannot think of her name. Esther Roll is the reason why John Amos got that job. You know, they both starred in Archie Bunker, and she was a maid in Archie Bunker. But then they pitched the series to her, which was going to be a single black woman. And he gives all the praise in the world because she fought, because that wasn't the way black people were at that time. There were black families, and she said no, she had to have a strong black man, and she recommended him for the role, and he got the role. And that role is legendary in our mind because we can relate to it, because we had fathers, and if not fathers, grandfathers, we had uncles who were just like that. Not all of our people are sexual predators and child molesters, and some people want you to think those people fell upon bad luck. Some of us had good fathers. I know I had a great father and a great mother. And I'm not just saying it because she gave me birth. She was a great mother. And I will celebrate this Mother's Day coming up because I had a great mother and I had a great father. And the men that were around him at his job, they were great men, and they raised their families and children. And some of them lived to even raise their grandchildren. You know, as different drugs and things come along. You guys can't forget about drugs. I remember when I was introduced seeing crack in Los Angeles, man, it was a really bad deal. I was a little young, and even though I was sent out there for special work, looking back in hindsight, I wish they'd have thought about it. But crack, and it was a really harsh drug when it came towards the black family. They helped remove and tear up the black family by introducing these drugs. And sometimes when you see drugs on the news, think about it. You never even heard of those drugs. They're just introducing them to you and letting you know it's out there. They're saying, hey, this new drug is out there. Now you know it's out there, and people who do it a week are going to go out there and try and look for that drug. That's how they introduce fentanyl. Fentanyl been around for years. It's used to kill elephants, but they also use a little bit of it for people who are dying with cancer. And it's like, man, you know, people they get addicted to it. Boy, if we get this out on the market, boy, we have a whole new drug. Now it's all over everywhere. So they want you to believe that there are no black people in the home. But yet, the truth of the matter is there were black people, black families in the home, except those people who were hit, hard with drugs and things of that nature like that. And we already heard the guy who busted the CIA selling drugs in Los Angeles. And you got Rick Ross in his book, talking about the real one, in his book telling you he was the one introduced crack to Los Angeles, which drove Los Angeles to the way it was and spread that drug around, which really hurt our people a whole lot. And then they went on mass incarceration, which is also founded by Joe Biden, to lock up black people for minor offenses, even if those offenses only hurted them. All right. Like I showed you the guy who was sentenced to 60 years in prison for a $5 bag of marijuana by a Detroit courtroom. All right. That happens to a lot of black men. Of course, you're not going to have no black men in your house. Over half of them are in prison for things that they didn't even do. It's my view and in my opinion that I believe that over 60 to 70% of the people in prison are there for something that they did not do. They didn't have the money. I ain't got to tell you that. You see it every day. Every day, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 people a week are being let go after they spent 40 years, 50 years in prison, and they have no malice in their heart. I'm like that lady. Why aren't black people mad with the way that they've been treated by white people? Y'all still trying to look like them. You're still trying to dress like them. You're still trying to wear your hair like them. You're still following their trend, still desiring to be equal. Still desiring to be equal to your enemy or people who have taken the role at one time in the past as your enemy. And she just told you we're all related. We all come from two people, Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve. Just thought I'd get that out there. And so the Birth Dearth is the book that's been guiding these politicians and guiding them to the Supreme Court. And they have a couple of things in mind. How do we save the white race? Well, 69%, well, I read today, of all abortions are by white women. So if you make abortion illegal, harsh illegal, and trust me, states have already went ahead of the Supreme Court after seeing that. Governors have already signed abortion illegal. You can catch the new New York governor as she talks about that. If you go to Forbes on YouTube, she talks about that, and she's going to do everything in her power to make sure that it's legal in New York, so women don't have to go back to using clothes racks and clothes hangers to try and have an abortion as they used to. But this is a planned way to try and force white women to hold babies, that even if they were raped, molested, even if it was incest by uncles, to keep babies that they have no intention of keeping, and all in hopes to save a dying race. This is why cops are killing African American men, because they're terrified. This is why you see the increase of white men in trying to have relationships with black women and produce these mixed race children. They look at it as a way to survive, because they know that we're survivalists. We have survived everything they threw at us, and they figured the only way they were going to survive is if they get a child by somebody in the African American race. So let's see what we have here. I'm going to go on further. As one says, divided we stand, the marathon continues. Planned Parenthood reacts to devastating Supreme Court leak March. Definitely. Excon says, after Farrakhan spoke at Yankee Stadium, crack epidemic spread in the early 80s. Exactly. No problem. Now, we're going to talk about Planned Parenthood, because to me, black people need to understand what Planned Parenthood is and why Planned Parenthood is basically only in African American communities. All right. Let's take a look at Planned Parenthood and what it was actually said. All right. Okay. Now the lady's name who pretty much ran Planned Parenthood, her name is Margaret Sanger. I think I have a picture here somewhere. Okay, let me see. Where you hiding Margaret Sanger? Oh, let me show you Margaret Sanger. There's been a lot of information to come out on Margaret Sanger. This is Margaret Sanger, and it's been stated by people who knew her very well that Margaret Sanger was a racist. All right, a racist. And Planned Parenthood, in my personal opinion, allegedly served no godly purpose in the African American community, but there was always one in the African American community. So let's take a look at this. And it says in USA Today, they're talking about it. It says, like the abortion lobby, today, Sanger urged Dr. Gamble to enlist the help of spiritual leaders. Listen to this. Spiritual leaders to justify their deadly work writing. We do not want word to go out that we want to. Listen to this now, people. I ain't making this up, all right? Listen to this good. She didn't want word to go out, all right, that she wants to exterminate the Negro population. And the ministers is the man who can straighten it out, that the idea, if ever occurs to any of their more rebellious members. So they wanted to work with spiritual leaders, and they did, some spiritual preachers, to help them to do what they set out to do. And their mission was to exterminate the Negro race. So the next time you decide to go have an abortion at Planned Parenthood, realize they'll be glad to give you one. They didn't want to do that to white women, but they wanted to kill the entire Negro race. And you do that simply by killing off the offspring. If every, let's say, 9-year-old black girl or black boy decided they wouldn't be with nobody black, well, in about 40 years, the black race would just disappear. And that's what Planned Parenthood wanted to do. They wanted to, in their mission statement, that they wanted to exterminate the entire black race. Let's take a look at it one more time so you can see it for yourself, so you can understand what Planned Parenthood was about, because that's what's in these books about the birth dearth. And it talks here. It says, like the abortion lobby today, Sanger urged Dr. Gamble to enlist the help of spiritual leaders to justify their deadly work, writing, we do not want word to go out that we want to exterminate the Negro population. And the minister is the man who can straighten out that idea, even if it occurs to any of their more rebellious members. So if the rebellious members realize that Jeremiah chapter 1 says that God knows fetuses, so therefore you shouldn't kill them. You shouldn't stick these sharp things inside of a woman and cut them apart. That's not right. So therefore the ministers would take authority and say, well, it is right, so to speak, and would let Planned Parenthood do their job. And what was Planned Parenthood's job? It was to exterminate the Negro race. And look at what else she came up with. Sanger's Planned Parenthood mission. This is what her mission was, where she was urging in 1939, a letter to Dr. C. J. Gamble. Listen, Sanger urged, all right, listen to this good. Sanger urged him to get over his reluctance to hire full-time Negro physicians. So America didn't even want Negro physicians, even though the first heart transplant was carried out by a black man. All right. Anyway, as the colored Negro can get closer to their own, listen to how they do us. Get Negro physicians because they can get closer to their own members and more or less lay their cards on the table, which means they're ignorant. All right, so she says, this is one of the things she wanted to do. Let's get black doctors so black doctors could hear what was going on and take advantage of the ignorance of Negroes. Ministers put black doctors, and you see why we are our own worst enemy? You see what? So many of y'all so busy trying to tell me what to do. I don't really care about Bill Gates right now. I need to know if you're hearing what I'm saying so we can reverse this. Bill Gates' father is dead. He's standing before his judgment now. What are we going to do about this now? Is more important. And the way we do this is by education, and you getting out talking to young women and young ladies, and getting them, especially in the black community, to keep their babies. They would, Sherman Morris cashier says, they would experiment on black people to get the operations right before they perform the operation on whites. Exactly. They also did use anesthesia on blacks. They did. And we can't forget about the Tuskegee Airmen, syphilis, all of that stuff. They used that on us first as well, too. And that's the reason why Alex Jones said the smartest race of people on the world was black people, because black people wouldn't take that vaccine. They wouldn't take it. I'm not saying anything about it, so please don't get it misconstrued, YouTube. But that's what Alex Jones said. And he followed that lead, and a lot of other people did too. Eventually, you saw police officers, fire department people. Now they need to hire them back. Airlines, 1/3 of the airlines have been fired because they refused, because of all the experiments that they did on other people. And now they ask you to experiment with the vaccine. It's an experimental vaccine. They don't know what it does. You have 1 to 3 years before to see if you're going to get blood clots or not. So they're experimenting with something. Whatever it is, whatever they make out of it, it's an experiment. It is not guaranteed to do anything, make anything better or anything worse. It's an experiment. Margaret was a monster, Colin. She absolutely was a monster. And her role was to exterminate the Negro population. Let's see if we got anything else on that. For those identifying historical figures with racist roots who should be removed from public view because of their evil histories, Planned Parenthood founder Margaret Sanger must join that list, and I totally agree. In promoting birth control, she advanced a controversial Negro project, wrote in her autobiography about speaking to a Ku Klux Klan group. She wrote this in her autobiography. She spoke to the Ku Klux Klan and advocated for a eugenics approach to breeding, for the gradual suppression, elimination, and eventual extinction of defective stocks, those human weeds which threaten the blooming of the finest flower. She was talking about black people. She wanted to extinct black people. And yet they have statues of her, and black people praise those statues because they're following their favorite politicians, when this woman wanted to extinct us. So basically, what I'm saying to you is why the Supreme Court leaked this document is to let you know they finally got what they wanted. A group of people who would overturn Roe versus Wade, making abortion illegal. And what this is, American Eugenics Society is real. Yes, it is. And what this is a way they're going to try and force white people to keep their babies, just like that Texas law. You basically see who it's after. It's after white people. And if the woman has an abortion, they're going to even sue the man, and the man may not even know that the girl is even pregnant. But if she does it, he's still going to be sued anyway, period. Because they want to do everything they possibly can to use the birth dearth as their guide, thinking that this would save the white population. When they don't understand, it's because of the way they did slaves. They're cursed and can't reproduce because of the 475 years of slavery, the lynching, the hanging of African Americans. They thought they were getting away, and right before your eyes, they are not. They are dying at an alarming rate. At an alarming rate that can't be stopped. Even as some people try and kill African Americans, even though African Americans are turning out to be the most forgiving people, and you heard Jane Elliott, she don't understand why. God is reversing it and killing the killers. He's killing the killers, and the killers are falling off, and they can't even reproduce. So now you see why they got crinkly-haired black women and macaroni and cheese with a white man. Now you understand it. They're trying to put it in your mind, and they're trying to save themselves by having off-breed children. These aliens, they weren't even supposed to be here. God didn't want us to mix races, just like He didn't want us to be involved with our same sex. He said, let everything reproduce after His personal program on kind. That's what He intended on. But, you know, hey, people do what they want to do. My point in saying that, I'm just going to bring the truth to you. So this birth dearth is what the Supreme Court's following. And this bringing people over from other countries is just what the birth dearth recommended. So now you have a huge portion of people in America, which are Ukrainians. Because you know Ukraine's not going to beat Russia in that war at all, period. And then if we go to war, then more African Americans would be killed, because if you know anything about the military, African Americans must go first. Always been that way. Vietnam, World War II, World War One, Civil War. Remember Civil War? Everybody, you're gonna be free. Help us fight. You're gonna be free. But black people went to fight. They were killing the South. Thought they were gonna be free in the church, and just about 5 minutes to midnight. And the next day they're supposed to be free. Like, it's 5 minutes midnight. What are we gonna do? He said, well, we'll just pray. And that became the thing they use in church called watch me. That had nothing to do with God. They wasn't watching for God. Those people were watching, would they be free people? They had no idea what Abraham Lincoln's plan was. Well, I'm going to tell you what his plan was. Abraham Lincoln's plan was he had prisons built. And instead of letting those people roam around free, they started to put black men in prisons. They first started off looking like houses and then wound up being institutions. And black people were not free. Black people were stabbed in the back by Abe Lincoln. Prison. That's what they watched for. Prison. That's all they got was prison, where they would do free labor because they were in prison. So y'all think that these labor prisons have been just now coming around. These prisons have been around since the beginning of time. And God is queens, says Pakistanians, Mexicans, Ukrainians, yeah, everything but us. And they're sending, like I say, they were making y'all think that President Trump was sending home Mexicans. No, he wasn't. He was sending home Eritreans. He was sending home Nigerians. And these people have been in America for 30, 40 years. Some of them were born here. He was sending them back home, black people. He was sending them home. That's what he was doing. Joe Biden didn't want a wall. He didn't want the wall. Let's not have a wall. But then when the Haitian population started, well, you know what? Mexico's going over there. We're going too. Let's build a wall. Yeah, I know people who are down there guarding the border in Texas. They're not guarding the border against the Mexican population. They're guarding the border against the Haitian population and a lot of the people who are in the Dominican Republic who wants to come here. Those are black people, and they're going to side with black people. They have a lot in common with us. That's when all of a sudden Joe Biden changed. Well, let's get the military down there. And, you know, nevertheless, that failed. That's why the governor of Texas got huge buses and dropping them off in Washington. And you know what? When he dropped them off in Washington, the strange thing to me is they got a place to go, waiting for them. And some of you listen to me barely holding on to your place, but they got a place to go for those people. So you can see Margaret was definitely a racist. Let me read this part. It says here, the birth dearth is neologism referring to the falling fertility rates. In the late 1980s, the term was used in context of Americans and European societies. The use of the term has since been expanded to include many other industrialized nations, but these nations are all of European Anglo-Saxon descent, and they are not able to reproduce. You know, if you can see this when you look at something that happens to a white child. A white mother can leave the child in the car for a second, and there are 10,000 families ready to adopt it. Yet we have millions of black children that need adopting that nobody wants to adopt. And you know what? Even when superstars do it, they get up and go to another country. you want to help the black populace, but you're going to go to Africa and adopt a child. That's today why I think that God blesses Sandra Bullock. That little girl may not be Sandra Bullock's little girl, but you can't tell. Y'all should see that little girl, how she's done a wonderful job in raising that little girl. You can't tell her that that little girl is not her little girl. At least I wouldn't, because she loves that little girl. I don't know why she couldn't have a child of her own, but maybe that's why God don't let some people have children of their own. Need you to take and have some of these other children. So I say all that to say this. That's what all these distractions and stuff are for. These people, man, these people who are working for law enforcement and stuff like that, create ruckus to try and get your mind off what's really happening. If y'all were to be honest tonight, many Hidden Colors Field, many of you would admit you never even heard of the book, The Birth Dearth. How you? If you read the book, The Birth Dearth, say you read it. If you didn't read the book, The Birth Dearth, say you didn't. Type it in the box. Come on. If you read it, say yes. If you didn't, say no. Sex slave, missing children. Yes. All of that, and I ain't even had a chance to go into that. I just wanted to introduce it to you tonight, The Birth Dearth. Now, let me, again, I have to stress this because this is important. That's what I'm saying, Reef K. I know that a lot of people hadn't heard this, but now this should answer a lot of your questions about what's going on. I mean, you should now have to say, oh my God, why are they doing this? She just told you, those white people are terrified. White men's time is over with, okay? Even Jane Elliott told you. They know that they are being depopularized and nothing can help. Artificial insemination, test tube ligation, and cloning and in vitro fertilization has all failed, and a reality has set in with them that in a few years from now, that's correct. That's what I want to get to. The few people who have this book, and I'm one of those lucky ones who actually have it. If you want this book, this is the cheapest that I found it for you, $1,305. So you can buy a copy of this book for $1,300 because they're not printing it anymore under no circumstance, because they don't want you to know the information in it. Because if you don't understand the information in this book, and you don't understand Jane Elliott, who just told you, one, the decision he made was, okay, they were going to just pay white women a welfare and Social Security that was going to be just for white women. White women could have 15 babies; it didn't matter. But then they knew that was racist; it wouldn't work, and they didn't want to pay black women. They want to give black women a dime. Still didn't. And if in order for you to get welfare back in the day, you had to lie and say you didn't have a man and know you had a man in order to get any kind of help at all, period. All right? And he said, no, we can't pay women. That's why I stay in them thrift stores on them shelves. Amen. I do what you got to do. Indie Publishing says, if we knew the real truth, the world would explode. Exactly. But it's out there. You know, they're just not going to give it to you. It's out there. It is out there. So they want to pay white women to have babies. That was the initial intention. Just pay them. If a white woman had 25 babies, the state and government were going to take care of it. But because they didn't want to give black women a dime, they said, no, throw that plan away. Then he came up with the next plan. What was the next plan? I'm going so fast. They had another plan. The other plan was they were going to import people in from European nations like Germany, that was blonde hair, blue eyes, and bring them in and just overpopulate America with them. Well, you see them doing it right now. Look at it. Joe Biden was a part of this discussion. Look at it. He bringing in Ukrainians, bringing in Afghanistans, bring Italians. Everybody's welcome, but nobody from Haiti, nobody from Cuba, nobody from India, West Indian countries, nobody from Africa. Not welcome. But anybody with blonde hair and blue eyes, that's why they stay so close to Germany. Out of everything the Germans did, she's right. Why are we still friends with Germany? Good break. So, and the last thing they came up with, and this is the thing that they're on right now. If we can get a Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court can overturn Roe versus Wade, then we can save about 69% of the white populace, because we will force white people to have babies, even if they were raped. We don't care. If they're white, fine. Even if they're got blood relatives, if they're white, fine. And this is what the whole big idea and why they're trying to get people to overturn Roe versus Wade. But let me say this too before I go on further. If you let them overturn Roe versus Wade, then it should be nothing for the Supreme Court to overturn your civil rights and put you back in slavery. The reason why you should fight for this, even if it costs you your life, because overturning your freedom is next. If you let them get away with this, overturning Roe versus Wade, you can't tell me that you won't be driving Miss Daisy and wiping Miss Daisy. That's all you have to do is let them get away with one of this. They're not surprised. He ain't doing no investigation. The justice is lying. He know they put this out here to let you know that they've taken away your right. They reversed it because the president wanted it. Reversed it and took away your right to do away with something that you may not have wanted, that somebody forcibly gave you and put you in incredible pain in the process. What's going to stop them next from taking away your rights? The couple of blacks on there who are married to white people? No, they feel like they're one of them because they've been included. Give me a break. Give me a break. That's why protecting the rights are so important, and you got to be marching, and you got to do whatever you can, and be willing to die for it. That's why I admire the Trump people. That's why I say they had a right to go up to the Capitol. The Capitol is owned by the people, not the politicians.
And the destruction of Planned Parenthood offices, and you don't understand the wall that we're going to build on the southern border of the United States, you haven't read the book The Dearth by Ben Wattenberg. Ben Wattenberg was a brilliant Jewish man who was a member of the American Enterprise Institute, and he wrote a book, the first paragraph of which says, "The main problem confronting the United States today is there aren't enough white babies being born in this country." He was an advisor to presidents of the United States. He wrote the book in 1987. He says if we don't change this and change it rapidly, white people will lose their numerical majority in this country, and this will no longer be a white man's land. Now, I'm not misrepresenting this. I'm telling you exactly, almost exactly what he says. He says there are three things we can do to solve this. Number one, we could pay women to have babies, as they have been doing in Western European nations for years. Then he says, and these are his words, not mine, unfortunately, we would have to pay women of all colors to have babies, so we don't want to do that. He says the second thing we could do is increase the number of legal immigrants that are allowed into this country every year. Then once again he says, unfortunately, the vast majority of those wanting to come to this country today are people of color, so we don't want to do that. The third thing he says, and women had better pay attention to this, 60% of the fetuses that are aborted every year are white. If we could keep that 60% alive, that would solve our birth dearth. Does that sound like racism to you?
Can you talk a little bit about the trauma associated with?
The trauma associated with it?
Yeah.
One of the main traumas is it tells white people that they are superior because of the lack of melanin in their skin. And then they find out suddenly that we've got a black president. That's traumatic. That's where their trauma is. Living a lie, finding out the truth, is traumatic. Finding out now, recently, that within 30 years, white people will be in the numerical minority in this country is going to be traumatic. White people are scared to death right now, particularly white males. They're scared to death that they are going to lose their power in the future. And they are. But if you want to get ready for the future, if you want to be treated well in the future, treat others well in the present. What we do in the present constructs the future. We called the Japanese, and you'll pardon me, but this is what we called them, slant-eyed little yellow We didn't say that about the Germans. After the war, we rebuilt Germany and Japan. And we get along beautifully with the Japanese. That was in 1945 that we finally won that war. How many years ago was that? Figure that out quickly.
I'm not a math person, but...
You're not a math person, but you know it wasn't that far. Right. And it didn't take 50 years for us to have peace with the Japanese and the Germans, even though we dropped 2 atomic bombs on Japan. The Japanese hadn't killed 10 million people. Nowhere near that. We didn't drop any bombs on Germany, any atomic bombs on Germany. They were a different kind of people. We couldn't afford to do that. We killed how many Japanese people with 2 atomic bombs? And they forgave us. You want to talk about forgiveness? You want to talk about changing this thing? I cannot understand how Japanese people can stand the sight of any of us, and yet they do. I cannot understand why black people who have been subjected to the ugliness that they've been subjected to in this country can get up every morning and go to work among us and not be absolutely furious. And I don't understand why we allow white people to behave the way they do. I don't understand that. And my 3rd graders, after they'd gone through the exercise, couldn't understand it and wouldn't tolerate it. And when they went up to junior high and a junior high teacher used the N-word, one of my former students said, if you're going to use that word, I'm going to go out in the hall until you stop using it, because we don't use that word in this school. That was a 7th grader who told his teacher off. When we have enough students who are willing to confront people who are making racist, sexist, ageist, homophobic statements, we're going to be better off. We have got to stop tolerating the intolerable. If it's intolerable for my black cousins, and every black person on this earth is one of my cousins, if it's intolerable for them, it's intolerable for me. I will not tolerate it. I will not tolerate it. That is not that. I am required not to tolerate that kind of treatment for the people who are related to me. And that's every person on the face of the earth. If your ignorance is such that you'll mistreat somebody because of your ignorance about the color of their skin, don't do it around me. Number 1, I've been threatened with death lots of times. Now I say, go for it, fool. My husband died 4 years ago. Being with him would not be a bad thing for me. Death is not the worst thing that can happen to you. Living a worthless, useless life is much worse than dying.
That's what we see Jay-Z has done. That's what we see Puff has done. The music don't become how you pay the bills. It's a lot of pressure off of it. You got other things bringing in income, you can make music.
This new song with Nip and Jay, what the fuck, I got something to say. What a slap in the fucking face. Like what the fuck is going on? Who told you that song and did you know all along? And why did your bitch sell that painting 2 weeks after he was gone? I'm gonna tell you what it feels like. It feels a little fishy. Feels like something's going on ever since that John Legend song and Khaled's prediction of a Grammy. If you ask me, I can't stand him. Seems a little weird. Question number 1, why is there no blood? Question number 2, Sam left in the AM is true, but you're talking about the shits all up in the afternoon. Don't trip, we're gonna find out the truth soon. Who did what to who? Did they plan to eat the chili fries or was it just a surprise? Can you see the lies of witness in a cowboy's eyes? Are we gonna just sit here and forget? Are we gonna ride like Nip said? It's a little weird that the judge quit. Handing out immunities like candy makes me sick. I got a lot of unanswered questions like, why is the footage all grit and I can't see shit? Who the fuck is that white man in that white BMW? Probably was the FBI. Yeah, I noticed that white guy, and I noticed the car wasn't in the pictures when they showed them afterwards. They thought we would forget. They got that shit backwards. They weren't expecting me to drop this track and raise all these questions with my Mac words. I'm really mobbing through LA smoking backwoods. I've been doing this shit all my life. TMC, AMI. You might just see an empty parking lot when you ride by. Well, me, I see way more. I see an independently owned store. I see the community taking power back, whether you're white, Mexican, Asian, or black. As long as you're not blue. Good ones, there might be a few, but from my life experience, I'm like, fuck that. I'm not defending Eric, but what's the fucking delay? They requested a quick trial, it's been over 800 days. They try to distract us in so many clever, creative ways. Yeah, you got your Grammy, and now you're a billionaire. But what about the families that are still living there? Seems a little unfair, just a little something to compare. I never seen a fireman wearing a bulletproof vest. Yes, the shit to me seems a little suspect. The shit's a little weird. Crisis actors taking away our fathers, making our child some bastards, killing creative men and women for their masters. The waves that Nip wrote in, you didn't know when it began. A bunch of new chapters, you didn't think about what would happen after. We would put the pieces together on your transparent bullshit. I can see right through it, like the clear blue sky in the LA sunny weather, where with a palm tree, swing side to side and we ride together on a white horse or a double R hearse in a foreign car. Either way, you gotta be on guard because they're on tap for anyone who's brown or black with tats. Everybody sees it, but nobody wants to attack. It's sad if you ask, we all gotta blast back. We're in the game, though we can't touch the ball. Seems a little unfair if you ask me, that's all. So take your ignorant ass to YouTube and type in Tanique Reviews to get the real news. We're doing the shit for justice, not views. Sharing knowledge and coming together, that's the real tool. He tried to lead us to the lake, so don't sleep on the knowledge that he gave to me and you. He wanted us to learn from his mistakes, so with our new knowledge, good decisions we could make. And also one thing I wanted to say myself, they killed Dr. Sebi because he was teaching health. Assassins, they come in all shapes and sizes, big booties, hips and thighs. Oh, you're Diddy's girl, right? Oh yeah, John Legend, some things happen at your video shoot. I got a couple questions for you. All those strings you pulled, you still can't make a rap hit. You punk ass little bitch, you probably got a little dick. All the shit that you have to did. This new song with Nip and Jay, what the fuck, I got something to say. What a slap in the fucking face. This new song with Nip and Jay, what the fuck, I got something to say. What a slap in the fucking face.